Hello and welcome. My name is Doris Fiebig and this is a tutorial from sculptcookie.com. In this tutorial I will show how we can sculpt a hand. We will use these reference photos from different people and we will use this hand sculpt I made also as reference. Here I will explain the main anatomical features we need to consider when sculpting a hand. Then I will show an approach how to quickly sculpt all the fingers, and in the final part of the tutorial I will show how we can pose our hand to get a natural pose, and we will end in the tutorial and receive a sculpted hand like this, which is obviously still rough, but a little cleanup will get a very nice result. Okay, thanks, and I hope I see you soon. Hello and welcome. My name is Doris Fiebig and this is a tutorial from sculptcookie.com. In this tutorial I will show how we can sculpt a hand like this using reference photos of hands from possibly different people. So let me first where's the scroll bar? Enable the screencast so that you can see what I am doing, and let's do this a little smaller. Okay, so before we start sculpting a hand, we want to make us familiar with the important shapes and forms, and so we study this reference here a little closer. And the first step in every sculpting is to get the basic forms and proportions correct. So we study this photo and I draw in basic forms like squares and rectangles to capture the main masses. So the biggest mass of the hand is obviously this rectangular shape I have indicated here, and then we have here about almost a triangular shape, and then we have the mass of the fingers. I put them all together in one big mass, and it's a polygon like this with 5 corners. And then we have the thumb, which is divided in I have this a little wrong, so something like that. Okay, and the thumb starts here, goes here and here. This is one important mass of the thumb, and then we can approximate the thumb itself by a rectangular shape like this. So here sticking out a little, and here is not covered completely, so this rectangular shape fairly good represents the mass of the thumb. And in a similar way the other simple shapes I've drawn represent the masses of the respective parts. And so we want to first start with bringing in the main mass here, sculpting that, and for that we also need to know how thick this is, and we can't see this in these both pictures. We can see it a little here. So we have the this thickness of a finger. It's a little thicker here at this end where it attaches to the hand. So the thickness of the finger determines about the thickness of this rectangular shape here. And here at the bottom of the hand we see the thickness is about twice as big. And the same is here on the other side. So in the side view we should create a shape, a rectangular shape which is twice as wide here at this end than here. And we see this here in the hand. I sculpted for you too. I sculpted this so that we can rotate it and really see all angles. And I recommend at home, when you follow this tutorial, please use your own hand as a main reference and look and try to replicate your own hand. So we see here the width is about the width of the fingers, and here at this point it's about twice as wide, and here at the thumb side it's even wider. Okay, so we start as always with a cube, and because as we have seen we have here in the middle a square shape, but it is not a cube but much less. How wide is it? Well, we see here are 4 fingers, they divide up the space evenly about. So this length is 4 fingers, and we know the depth is 1 finger wide, so it's a quarter of this length here. So we need to bring in our cube, and I like to do this in edit mode. We scale it down in Y direction, so scale Y to about 1/4, or I can type in 1/4. So that's about 1/4. And now go in front perspective, and I go for a moment in orthographic view because I want to rotate exactly in this plane, and I rotate this square so that it comes about like this. Okay, and to make things easy, we can easily extract not extract, what is its name, extend this here down, and let's go again in front view and create this triangle here. So I go in vertex selection, let us see all the vertices, select this, and I grab them down to make about this angle we see in the drawing I did. And then we select this too, and we again go down. So we have a beginning of the arm. We don't concentrate on the arm here, but we need it in our sculpting to see where the hand ends. And now let's bring in this little shape here. So I put an edge loop and scroll it up a little, since we see this point here is a little higher than the halfway point, so I put it here. And now I extrude is a name I forgot. Oops, I'm sorry. Where's I extrude this. No, I have not selected everything. Yes, I have. Extrude. Where's extrude? Extrude. I don't know why it's going. Doesn't matter. We grab it and pull it in the way we want to have it. And we see here this is about a line. So I try to get this. And now I just, sorry. I'm not good in edit mode, as you see, but it's really much quicker than doing this in sculpt mode. And now for making the polygons a little more even, I add a few loops here, something like that. So, and let's add another loop cut here, just so that's somewhat evenly divided. It's not really important, but the sculpting starts easier. So we have our basic shape already, and so this is orientated like this hand here. And now we can jump into sculpt mode with our clay strips brush and full strength. Front faces only is disabled, and the curve I want to have, let's push this down so you can see the whole. I like to sculpt with a rectangular curve. We enable dynamic topology. We disable the mirror because the hand is not symmetric, and so we don't need this. Constant detail and subdivide collapse. And now we sample the detail size. It's 75. That's too much. We go down to something like 30, or it doesn't matter exactly the number we choose. Okay, so now we can bring this main mass of the hand into good shape, and we see we need to extend. We haven't done this here, so we need to grab, let's take for that the snake hook brush, because it creates new polygons, and we grab here and make it wider, about twice as wide we said, then at the fingers. Turn it around. We are still in orthographic view, that's why it looks so odd. And here it should also be about twice as wide and as on the top. And now we fill in with this clay strips brush to make it plain. First here, then here, and then we can plane it down. Let's make the polygon size a little smaller, then it's better to see what we are doing. So I just, and as you see, I try to make the hand rather boxy. This is quite different than what we do for portrait sculpting. Oops, I'm sorry. Flatten. Because why are we doing this? Because when we look at a hand, except when people are very fat, but with normal hands are quite boxy. The fingers, for example, are not cylinders, but they are more like long boxes. Also, this main mass here is more like a box than a round form. It is rounded off at the corners, but not so much. And we can see this on the reference photos here too. So that's why we keep the boxiness we created in edit mode. Now I brush over here to get the smaller polygons, and so I think it's still not thick enough. Oh, I have the wrong brush. Yes, I want to show you each time which brush I choose, so better enable this. Something like that. Yes, that's okay. So now let's see, what should we have? We have these pads here. Let me draw this for you. Here's a very thick pad. Here's one, and here is one. And we have this in our reference hand too, very well visible. And here in the middle, it's a deeper. So this is essential in the hand, and so we put this in. And as with sculpting, always we try to make bold statements. So we really push this down and then round this off. And here in this, because we want to keep everything quite boxy, it's very good to do with this scrape brush. As you can see, the scrape brush is a perfect tool to make flats and also to round shapes. So I want to push this down here a little more, just to make the transition a little more visible. Okay, so that's, now we are ready to round off a little our hand, and we look again at our reference. I think I put away the grease pencil here, so we see here it's quite round and here it's less. So we scrape over the corners here a little and here a little more. So we make strokes like this to get the round shape. On the other side, we can see this better on our reference hand. We see here is quite nice curve, and here's just a little rounded. let's look on the other side too. We have here, when we look from this way, we see that the hand is slightly curved, and the highest part is here where this tendon of the middle finger runs. So this is the highest point, and then it falls down slightly in this direction and slightly in this direction. Okay, so we create this in our hand. I draw in where the ring finger runs. The ring finger is the second finger, so it starts around here and it ends here in the middle of this line. So it should be orientated something like that. That's the highest point from the front view, from this view. I emphasize a little more, and I admit a little more clay here and here so that it can fall down, and we plane it just a little. So we can plane down now this corner just a little bit, and this corner just a little bit, and we take care of this later when we can round it off a little, but here is something different happening, or we can do it just now because we are at it. So when we see here, this is a triangular, this shape here, and we see here the skin is very thin, and when the thumb is in the position like this, it's rather tight here, and it goes up to this, and in most hands it builds like a valley here, which is nicely articulated, like I have sculpted here. It's not in all hands. In some hands this is a tight area, but in my hand, for example, it is like this, and so I will do it. And let's look here again. We have this other tendon from the index finger, and here's a plane going down to the border of the thumb. So here's a plane going down. So we want to bring in all these features in our hand. So this is the border of the thumb. So let me draw in with a crease pencil. Again, where's the brush? Tools, sculpt mode. Okay, I don't know what happened. So this the crease brush, and I want to indicate the tendon of the index finger, and from here it goes down, we said, towards this one, and here is the deepening. So I cut down here, yes, about here. I round this off a little, and then we have to push down this a little more. So let's see again. We see something very important which is often missed in sculpted hands, and that's when we look from this view. We can't see this here so clearly. We see that the thumb is not on the same plane as the hand and the fingers when they are in this position. The thumb is a little more to the left. And how much? It is about the halfway of the finger. That's the border. And so we want to bring this important feature. That is one of the things which makes hands believable. So we want to bring this in, so we need to push this thumb area more to the left. So I select it and inverse the selection, and now I move this using the grab brush to the left, and we know about halfway from this line. So I think it looks good here in this. So now we can remove the mask, Alt M. And now we can make the transition I said we have from this line, tendon line of the index finger to fall down to the thumb. So we can, with the clay brush, make like this and plane this in. You see? And from the other side we see this pushes our discussion here a little more. That's fine. That's exactly what we want, because the thickest part of the hand is here at the thumb area usually. So we add this a little more. Okay. So and now let's just round off just a little bit the arm. And when we look closely, we see at the inside of the hand, can we see this here? Here's a strong tendon. Here we see it very well. Here's a strong tendon, and from this tendon on, the surface slopes down quite heavily to the side, and here it is round and folds down slowly. So we want to bring this into the tendon. Here is about where these big cushions meet. So let's draw it in. The tendon is about here, and from here it has to fall down dramatically. My hands are a little too thin, I see. So let's add here on this side, because on the top side they build about a plane. And let's put also a little in the bottom. Let's see. Let's look at this reference. The hand, the arm attaches inside a little less. We can see this, oops, on this reference too. We see this border here, and also here we see a strong border. So let's go back. Yes, I think that's about okay. And now we slope this down strongly, and this just a little bit. So the hands we do later, but I just want to have it a little in. It's still a little on the thin side. We correct this later if we want. Okay, so now we have prepared, and now we need to sculpt the fingers. And what we do is we sculpt one finger, and then we duplicate the finger and bring all these and glue it to these hands. This is because otherwise we would have to sculpt 4 times exactly the same, and that's tedious and boring. So to do so, we go into object mode, since we want to add now a new object for the index finger. And before we go in, we want to study the fingers a little more. We see the fingers are about all the same thickness. This pinky finger is a little thinner, and the most important features are the nails, of course, and these joints here, which appear as knuckles. And let's draw some lines to understand the proportions. I draw a line from here to here, and then from here to here through the knuckles. And I do the same here at this, from here to here, oops, about here, and from here to here, so that I touch all knuckles about in the center. And when we have done this, we observe that these lines here are about parallel, and they divide the space about evenly into thirds. And these lines here are parallel and also divide the space about evenly into thirds. One point is that in many people the pinky finger is divided not in thirds like in this reference, but the middle part is much longer. The finger has the same length as is shown here, but the last part of the finger is shorter. This is in my hand, for example. Also, I have the joint about here. So if you want to make it realistic, you don't need to worry if your division is not like this, but the pinky finger is a little different. Okay, so now we go again in orthographic view, because I want to add the cube again for the finger in front view. And now we go into edit mode, and we try to make a finger, the box for a finger. So let's draw the box for a finger. Okay, good approximation. And so we know the length of the finger is about the same as the length of this square we had for the main mass. So let's grab it and measure. That's about already the same good size. So when I put it here, I can scale it in x-axis, so that's about 1/4. So I can type in 0 to 5. So that is a good size for the finger, and I grab it to bring it here in position. And since I want to make later a Boolean operation, and I scale down the y-axis too, so scale y 0 to 5. Now this cube here now represents my main mass. I push it back a little, grab y to have it here, and now I scale it a little in z-axis. Or we can do this in sculpt mode. And now I put some lines. Let's do 3 or 4, it doesn't matter. Okay, so for that the cube has evenly spaced polygons. So now we jump into sculpt mode, enable for this finger the dynamic topology, and I think the detail size should be fine. And now the first thing is adjust, or we can fill it, flood fill, make it a little smaller even. Detail flood fill. When we now look in, we see now we have very small polygons. That's easier to work with on such small elements. So now I scrape in the roundness. We know the fingers are pretty not really tubes, but more cubes which are rounded off at the sides. And that's also true when we look from this side here. And we have to put in the joints, and we see that the joints here to create pads. So we want to smooth our fingers, smooth off the corners and create these pads. So this is the inside of the hand. So I first draw with a crease brush where the joints are, those 1/3 way and 1/3, and now let's get back in perspective. So, and now we transfer this here to the top. This 1/3 is about here, and 1/3 is about here. Yes, that fits together. And now we can scrape off the corners carefully, and not so much at the knuckles, more in the inside. And on the bottom it's a little rounder, so let's make the creases a little longer so that they go around. And scrape in these cushions. scrape off the corners here. And now let's, with a clay strips brush, emphasize a little the roundness. I think the detail size is still a little large. Yes, that's much better. Yes, you see we can do this either with a scrape brush, or we can do it with a clay strips brush, whatever you prefer and feel more comfortable with. So let's brush in just once to get this not so artificial. Remove a little of this so that we can see where the joints are, and now we add a little rounded piece to really show where the joints on top are. And now we need to make the curve of the fingers, and we see when we look from the side, the fingers go first a little flat and then they curve round dramatically. So we do this here too, and I like for this using the scrape brush. So I scrape off very strongly this corner, and then I scrape a little on this corner I have created here and a little on this corner I have created here. When I now look from the side, I have a perfect rounding. So now I can round this off, and we know here the fingertip is rather round. So I use the scrape brush to smooth, make a nice round smooth. So that's, and now let's finally flatten this here. It's already flat, and clean up. And now we have a very basic finger, and in the next tutorial I show how we make this pretty and then attach to the main hand. Thanks.